Howdy, Immortallium here, and welcome to my second 24-hour manga marathon video. For anyone who's clicked on this video and doesn't know what the 24-hour manga marathon is, I will include a link to the original video detailing the rules, etc., in the description below. So if you don't know the rules for this, check that video out first and then come back to this one. I had intended to start at 11, like I did last year. But as you can see, possibly from the clock, I don't know if you can, might be a bit small there, I was a little delayed. Shouldn't be that big a deal, and it'll be well worth it. You guys don't know what I was doing for the last 10 minutes, do you? It'll be well worth it, in a couple of weeks or so on, if it works. But anyway, let's start off. So, just like last year, I'm gonna time myself using the stopwatch on my watch, which basically will start off at 0, as you can see, and it'll run up to 24 hours. Now, once it hits 24 hours, it'll reset back to 0, so, I'll have to show the watch throughout, each session, etc., etc., and that's how it's gonna work. So, let's get started. First up, I'm gonna do the manga that I have no interest in, and what is that? That happens to be a pretty popular series. This series is, it's selling really well in Japan right now, manga-wise. The anime, I know it got into the top 10, viewership for its first episode. Since then, it hasn't gotten back in, interestingly, but it's a pretty popular series, and in fact, when I told some people that this was the manga I had no interest in, a lot of people were shocked. But it is 7 Deadly Sins. Now I have the first 2 volumes here, so hopefully that'll be enough for me to actually, develop an opinion. But as to why I have no interest in this manga, the simple reason is I've read some of the summaries, I've read some opinions of it, etc., etc., and it just doesn't look that interesting to me. It seems very standard shonen, and that's upset a couple of people, from the comments I've seen, and the reactions that I've had when I said that, because apparently some people really, really do love this series, and I could be wrong. Maybe it is a really good manga. We'll just have to see. So I'll get back to you on my opinions on this manga very soon. So I've just read volume 1 and 2 of 7 Deadly Sins. It has been about 2 hours, as you can see. Actually, can you see it? You can pause the video and see if you can see it. Anyway, point is, I've read the first 2 volumes. What is the story about? The story is about this guy right here, Meliodas, I think is his name. Meliodas, yeah. And he runs a bar, a traveling bar. And one day, this knight, a rust knight, comes along, visits the bar. All the armor falls off, and it turns out to be, just one moment, this girl right here. She is the princess of the Kingdom of Britannia, which is where the story's set. And she wants to gather these knights, these really powerful knights called the 7 Deadly Sins, because of the fact that the Holy Knights, which are the protectors of the kingdom, have launched a coup d'etat. And so she's gathering 7 Deadly Sins in order to fight back these Holy Knights. And that's how the story begins. And it's okay. I mean, it's nothing bad, it's nothing great either. The artwork starts out a bit shaky, very scratchy, etc., etc. The proportions go out of whack every so often near the beginning, but the artwork does improve over time. There's also a lot of negative spacing used at the beginning that's a bit distracting, but a little more detail builds in over time. Less characters going out of proportion, and a bit cleaner line work, etc., etc. So the artwork does improve. Story-wise, it's very kind of normal shonen. The lead guy, Meliodas, whatever the name is pronounced, comes across these opponents. He must really, hit them hard, really fast. There's like huge explosions of energy everywhere, etc., etc. So it's okay. The thing that I like most about this manga, I guess, at the moment, is the pigs. They're pretty funny. I actually didn't mention the pigs. There's this pig called Hawk that travels with Meliodas, and he talks, and he's a kind of a very sarcastic, snarky pig. You know, always kind of criticizing your man, and you know, all that jazz. Enjoyable enough. But overall, this manga, it's a bit average that I find, and you know, I'm not really looking to continue it at the moment. It's not. I'll say it's not bad, and like if you're looking for, you know, a manga just like that, you know, one that has a lot of fighting in it, a bit of comedy, decent artwork, particularly after a while, etc., etc., then yeah, this you won't go wrong with this one. But for me, you know, I'm kind of looking for other stuff. Now, if I might come back to this at some point, you know, particularly if I hear in the future that, you know, it gets really, really good. But for the moment, you know, I don't know. Like, I'm not regretting getting it. Like, actually, one thing that I will show, which is pretty nice, is that if you combine the spines together, the image actually makes, you know, combines. And that apparently works for like all the volumes that are released. So like once you have like volume 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc., it'll make a nice little spine arrangement there. So that's something nice. Also, there's a decent amount of bonus stuff in there. Just kind of, you know, character design stuff near the end of the first volume. There's some kind of faux interview thing near the end of volume 2, etc., etc. It's okay. That's what I will say. So, considering the time, I'm actually going to go have lunch now. And once I come back, I will decide on what the next manga I'm going to read will be. So, my next manga that I'm going to read, I have decided it shall be... One moment. Insufficient Direction by Miyoko Ano. Now, if you're not familiar with Miyoko Ano, she is a mangaka, you know, and she's married to Hideaki Anno, who did Neon Genesis Evangelion, who like directed the TV series and everything, not the manga. And because of that, she's been heavily exposed to a lot of otakuness. You see, Hideaki Anno is a massive otaku, and this is a kind of a, I think I've heard the term semi-autobiographical series of the life that she leads with, you know, her husband Hideaki Anno. So it'll be very interesting. And I want two things I want to point out. One is that this is a comedy, and the other is that it's in a kind of a super deformed art style, which is quite interesting because the only other series I've read from Miyoko Ano is one moment. Here it is. Is a series called Sakuran, which. For any of you who's ever read it, it's a very serious read, you know, about the life of a girl working in a brothel. You know, a very detailed artwork, kind of a depressing story, to be honest. So the massive difference, you know, in tone between this and this will be fascinating to see. The other thing I want to point out is I don't know how long it'll take me to read this. Now, the manga itself is pretty short. It's about 140 pages, but there is actually about, I think, about 30 pages, I think, of annotations, you know, explaining, you know, the jokes that happen in the chapter. Because you see, chapters, because so many of them are so heavily focused on you know, series that haven't been translated from Japan to here, you know, some very niche stuff that might have been translated here, but you know, most people haven't read or seen. So there's a lot of explaining to. So normally it wouldn't take me that long to actually read the manga itself, but depending on how many of the jokes I get, you know, when I first read them, I might end up flipping to the annotations quite frequently. So it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for me to read it. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about it. There's some other extras as well, like a couple of interviews, I think, at least one interview with Hideaki Anno. Anyway, So I'll read all that and I'll get back to you on what I think about it. Was just about to start reading when I realized that I didn't actually mention what category this fulfills. So Insufficient Direction is a josei manga, a josei manga being a manga aimed at older women. I can't remember exactly what magazine it was published in. It might say here, in Feel Young, that's it. So it's a josei, actually young, Feel Young. Usually I associate magazines that have young in the title to be seinen. So, but I definitely did some research on this, and this is definitely a josei. Okay, I might want to double check that at some point, but for the moment this is, my josei category. I just thought I should tell you that before I actually started reading. So I'll get back to you now on what my thoughts are on this. So it took me close to 2 hours to read this, which, as I said before, is a very thin book. Mainly because there was a lot referenced in it that, I had to actually look in the annotations. In particular, what I found most interesting was that there was a lot of references to Ultraman and Kamen Rider, I think that was it. Which is like these 1970s kind of superhero live-action shows. There was a lot of references to 1970s live-action shows in this manga, along with 1970s anime, 1980s anime, etc., etc. Anyway, what is the plot of this? I guess I should say. So, we have our lead two characters, Rompers, who is basically Miyoko Ano, and Director Kun, who is Hideaki Ano. And basically, they are starting to live together. He is a gigantic otaku, and that otakuness is beginning to rub off on her. She's already a bit of an otaku, but nowhere near as much as him. And, over the course of 21 chapters, each chapter is kind of like its own event that happens. And, they have to deal with it in a very amusing way. And overall, what do I think of this manga? I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite amusing. There was a lot that I think there's a bit of a cultural gap. Even I'd consider myself pretty decent otaku, but there was so much referenced in this manga, that is unavailable in English. Classic manga series, classic anime series. That there was a lot that I didn't get. Now, what was there that I did get was very funny, and there were several chapters in this actually that didn't require much, if any, otaku knowledge. So I enjoyed this manga a good bit, I will say. And the art was charming as well. Like it didn't just stick to the super deformed style that I pointed out. There's actually a couple of panels every so often that are where it goes like it suddenly becomes like a realistic drawing. Or it suddenly becomes a cutesy drawing or something. That's to reinforce the style of otaku-ness that's being, propagated. So, overall, it was a very enjoyable work. I enjoyed it. I do hope that someday I'll be able to come back to it, and having read some more or watched some more of series that are presented in this. Hopefully by then they'll start releasing more classic anime and manga, etc., etc. I'll be able to get a lot more out of this. So yeah, that's my opinion of that. Just before I go on to my next manga, I'm actually going to double check to see if this really is a josei work. If it isn't, I'll need to read some other josei work. Yeah, I'm going to double check that. Also, I took a quick glance at the computer. I think it was, just before I read this manga, and I noticed there's a video up there of a contest that I, participated in recently. I want to see if I won. So I'm just going to check that out. So I'll be back in a moment. Also, just to tell you, 4.5 hours since I began this marathon. So I think I'm making pretty good progress. So I did double check. Feel Young is a josei manga. It's a magazine. It's a monthly one. So it is a josei title, yay! So it actually does count for that category. I got a bit of a scare when I saw that it was published in Feel Young, because there's just, so much young out there. But maybe I guess young just simply, refers to magazines aimed at older people, That's what I'm assuming, because there's a seinen and josei young. Anyway. And the other one is actually that contest. Basically, I'm a runner-up in it, so if one of the first two people don't get back to the guys running the contest, I will get the prize, but but if they both get back to them in time, then I won't. So I'm actually kind of hoping that, like, one of them has already responded back, so I already know that my chances of winning get less. But I'm hoping I win. But we'll see about that. We'll see about that. Anyway, speaking of classic manga, I decided, now that I was complaining about, classic manga not getting released, I thought I'd do the manga before 1990 next, which the horror classic, The Drifting Classroom, from renowned author Kazuo Umezu. Now, I believe, if I'm correct, this was a 1970s manga series, isn't it? It's 1974, and that's when it began, at the very least. Published under the signature branch of, Viz. Ironically, it's actually a Shonen Sunday series, so I'm actually going to put it on my Shonen Sunday shelf once I've read it. Which I just find it'll be a bit annoying because I would have preferred much more to have the S thing up here for Shonen Sunday rather than the flower or spiral or whatever it is for signature. It's gonna look a little strange now, but what can you do about it? I do know, I guess the fact that it's a horror manga and it's supposed to be gory and all that meant that they decided it would be better to aim it at adult people, older people, rather than the people who read shonen manga right now. So anyway, I'm looking forward to reading this series a lot. I believe, is there 11 volumes or something? Or is it 12 or something like that? So once I have got this read, I'll be able to tell you guys whether or not I will be continuing on this series. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So I've just finished reading the first 3 volumes of Drifting Classroom. And it was very good. I would say it's the best of the 3 that I've read so far. So what's the story about? Well, the first chapter actually doesn't really tell you that much. Our lead character, Sho, who's the boy on the cover, gets into an argument with his mother just before he heads to school. And, he says to her, I don't ever want to come back here. The mom shouts at him, I don't want you to ever come back. He runs off to school. He meets his friend Shinichi. They're around school. Shinichi realizes he's forgotten his lunch money, so is Sho. But Sho heads to school anyway. Shinichi goes back, and as Shinichi is returning back to school, the school, what they say is quote unquote blows up. But there's just a crater there. There's no debris or anything, and that's how the story begins. And it becomes more and more freaky as it continues on. At the beginning it's a bit slow, I will say, but it does get a lot more kind of freaky as time goes on. And in fact, actually, I'm not sure how many of you guys have ever read Lord of the Flies, but there are a lot of points in this where it's really reminiscent of that. And besides that, actually I can understand now why Viz put it under their signature label, even though it was published in Weekly Shonen Sunday, back in the 1970s. It is really violent and really dark, and if it was published today, it probably would be a seinen. It just seems really surprising that back then they would publish in a shonen magazine something that's so really violent and dark. So yeah, I can understand Viz's decision. I'm making that a signature title. Now I will still put it in my Shonen Sunday, but with my Shonen Sunday, because it was published in Shonen Sunday. But yeah, it's really, really violent, and it's probably going to get more and more violent. But I'm definitely going to check out more of the volumes. And what I would recommend, though, is don't just get the first volume. I'd say at the very least get the first 2 volumes if you're going to read it, because then you'll be able to kind of get in, you'll be able to understand more in what direction the series is going, So yeah, that's kind of how, I just wanted to point that out. So yeah, it's very good. One thing I will say about the artwork, it's very nice. The paneling, though, is a little stiff at points. Now, it does kind of loosen up after a little while, but it is a bit stiff near the beginning, so that's just something I thought I should point out. Now, It's been about 7.5 hours since I've begun this marathon, which makes it around 6:30. And I'm just kind of wondering, should I take a break? My brain's kind of starting to feel slightly heavy-ish. Plus, I need to have dinner at now. So I was thinking maybe I should just head off, cook myself the dinner, come back, and I could read some gay porn. Jeez. Oh my god, just saying that makes me feel horrible. Okay, just for you people who are freaking out and going, what did he just say? Basically, I've read in some, magazines, some, online reviews, etc., that there's this amazing yaoi series, and obviously this is going to be my yaoi title. I actually have the first 2 volumes of it, and I heard really good things. Occasionally there'd be, a mediocre review, but I never saw a bad review of this, and the majority of it is enormously positive. So I decided to get the first 2 volumes of it, and to check it out, and I got it. And if any of you seen my manga haul, I quickly found out when I flicked through it. I didn't flick it on screen, I'll tell you. In case you think there'll be some gay porn if you if you access that video. No, but point is, there is explicit man-on-man sex in it. You see, everything. So I'm gonna try that out next, as awkward as that thought is. But I'm willing to give it a go and just see, if it is good, because really there are some, really strong reviews out there. So I'll give it a try. But before that, I'm gonna have dinner. So I don't know what time it'll be when I get back to you. But you might see me traumatized. So I've just finished reading the Crimson Spell volumes. Took me a little longer to get back to reading. It took me a while to make dinner and all that. We're about 11 hours in now, so that's about 10:15. And yeah, I finished Crimson Spell. So what did I think of it? Okay, let's start off with the story. So basically it's set in a fantasy world, and our lead character, Valdrigir, the names are very hard to remember. Just one moment, I'll get it. Yeah, Valdrigir, that was it. So our lead character, Valdrigir, is a prince, and his kingdom has just been attacked by demons. So in order to save the kingdom, he draws this cursed sword, which is able to slay any demon in one strike, or anything in one strike as far as I can tell, and defeats the demons. But in doing so, he becomes cursed. So he goes off to find this sorcerer, a disenchanter called Halvir, which is this guy up here. And they make a deal. Halvir basically, he likes to collect, antiques, artifacts, what have you. And Valdrigir, he agrees to, help him get these artifacts and, all that jazz, to get the, a disenchantment in order to, disenchant him, in order to remove the curse. But, they... At night, Valdrigir turns into a kind of a beast, and the only way for Halvir to calm him down, to relax him, is to have sex with him. that is the way that that is done, and it's awkward. I will say it's awkward, at least for me. Now, the good things about this manga: very nice artwork. Some pretty funny scenes, actually. There's a good few comic relief moments which I liked, but it was uncomfortable. Not only that, the story itself is a little cliche, and it's just a bit awkward. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad manga. It's just obviously not my thing. So I don't regret getting these, reading them. I just, no, I don't intend to pick up any more of it. But I gave it a go. That's all I can do. So my next manga is going to be from a classic manga author, Shigeru Mizuki, who is, a very famous mangaka. In fact, as it says on the back of this manga here, from the preeminent and most famous living Japanese cartoonist, Shigeru Mizuki, Onward Towards His Noble Death. Now, Onwards Towards His Noble Death, basically Shigeru Mizuki fought in World War II, and during that war, he lost an arm, and he doesn't, he really doesn't like how the Japanese government handled that war. So this is a semi-autobiographical account of his experience during the war, and it's supposed to be really, really good. So I'm looking forward to giving it a go. Shigeru Mizuki, for those of you who wondering who the hell is he, he's supposed to be one of the most famous Japanese cartoonists. He did a series called Kitaro. It's something like Kitaro or something like that. That's his most famous series, and it's supposed to be like one of the best yokai manga. Now, the company that did this, Drawn Quarterly, they released Kitaro in English, but it was kind of a best of. Like they took the best stories out of like the overall run and just put them together in one book, which puts me off. I mean, there's some people who seem very happy with that, but I'd rather just them release the whole thing. I don't know. But anyway, I'm very happy to check this out. So yeah, I'll give it a go and I'll see what I think. So I just finished reading Onward Towards the Noble Deaths. It is a little past 12:30, and it's over 13 and a half hours since I began this marathon. And Onward Towards the Noble Deaths is a very good read. Very good. The artwork was very interesting, as was pointed out at the foreword. There was a foreword in this done by, I always forget how to pronounce his name, Frederick L. Schott. He's translated lots of other stuff and he's an expert in manga. He was saying that Onward Towards Noble Death and Shigeru Mizuki in general, his artwork is fascinating because he has these really highly detailed backgrounds, but really cartoony looking characters at the front, in the foreground I should say. So that from an artistic point, this is a very, very interesting looking work, and I can tell from the title, it's not like sarcasm isn't the right word. It's more bitter. Onward Towards the Noble Deaths, because the deaths in it, like the majority of them, are very kind of unnoble. They're dying from malaria, getting eaten by a crocodile, or what was another example of like a particularly weak death? I think it was just like, getting shot down or stuff. And then, there was all these suicide charges in World War II where the Japanese commanders would order the troops to charge the enemy in a glorious, charge. And, it was meant to be like honourable to die for your country. But, it wasn't. It was disgusting and, horrible and all that. So that's my opinion on it. I guess actually the one last thing I should mention on it is this could just be because of the fact I'm quite tired at this point. But I found that a lot of the characters kind of like were really similar-ish looking, and I just had a bit of difficulty every so often just kind of telling who was who. So like maybe that's just my tiredness kicking in, and I should just try to reread it. During the day at some, in some month, not immediately, of course, to maybe take a year and then just reread it, and take my time at it, and maybe I'll be able to tell the characters a bit more easily apart. So anyway, that's my first 5 categories down, the 5 that are new manga. So just to quickly run through them, that would be 7 Deadly Sins for the one I had no interest in. After that it was Oh my god, my brain can't even think. Insufficient Direction, Jose. After that, the third was Drifting Classroom, for Manga Start Before 1990. Then we had Crimson Spell for Yaoi. And then we had Onward Towards the Noble Depths from Shigeru Mizuki. So the last category I need to do is my favorite manga, and I thought that since this manga is a bit too long to read all of it, I thought I would read the very first arc in it. And that is... 1 second. I only talked about this the other day. Well, I guess I should say like the last month or whatever. It was a podcast for the Anime Galaxy. Still hasn't come out yet, but it'll probably come out very soon. And that is With the Light, Raise an Autistic Child. And what I want to do is, you see, when I read With the Light, Raise an Autistic Child, basically I read the first 3 volumes of it. Or was it the first 4? I can't remember. Anyway, I read like, okay, let's just say it was the first 4. But then like volumes 5 and 6 were out of print for a very long time, so I had to wait. And then, you know, they became available, so I was able to get them, and I also got 7 and 8 while I was at it. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe it was just the first 3. I think I might have bought the 4th, but I didn't read it because I wanted to get the others before I started reading it all. But anyway, my point was I read the first 3, volumes of With the Light way before I actually finished the whole series. So I kind of just feel like reading that first arc again and just, remembering what's happened at the very beginning, because this is such a good manga. I mean, I'll save, my general opinion. I go into it in a decent level of detail in that podcast. I also did a review of it, which I'm particularly proud of. But anyway, what I gotta do actually right now is I just gotta find out how long that first arc lasts. I'm thinking up to early elementary years, so I think that goes up onto the second volume, which each volume except for the last one is a 2 in 1. So I think that's the first 2 volumes, and I think it's the first 2 volumes. Okay, so I'll read the first 2 volumes. After that, I have an idea of what I want to read next, but we'll just have to see if I will pick that, because it's not strictly manga, but I want to read it, so we'll see about it in a while. So I'll get back to you after I've read With the Light, the first volume of the Yen Press's 2 in 1s. It took me a lot longer than I expected to read the With the Light. Several reasons for that. It's 500 pages long, lots of dialogue, and I am so tired. I think it's been close to 17 hours or something like that. It's a little after 4 in the morning. So yeah, 7 hours to go. And I'm just making my progress. Basically now... Okay, actually wait, let me just start it all again. My brain's completely jumbled up. With the Light, I've explained it many a times, but in case you haven't, you're not familiar with the story, it's about a boy who is called he's called Hikaru. The family's name is Azuma. He's given the name Hikaru because he's born as the sun came, and it's like, Hikari means light in Japanese, so Hikaru, he's like born with the light, or like the light has given him, something like that. And he's fine for like the first year, but then after a while the mother, Sachiko, starts to realize that he's very different from other children. He reacts differently, etc, etc. And it's a really powerful story. It can be tough to read at some points, particularly near the beginning, where the mother and everyone around her doesn't understand what's happening with Hikaru. So yeah, that can be a bit tough, but it's very, very powerful to seeing all of the people begin to understand him, to try to, you know, take care of him, etc., etc. And that's one of the reasons. That's probably is the reason, or actually there's a lot more reason than that, but it's my favorite manga. And so with that, I've done the 6 categories I set out to do. So what my plan is right now is I'm actually going to close my eyes for a little while. I won't fall asleep because you know, I would stay asleep for way too long, I'd say. But my plan after that is I've been reading the second light novel of Spice and Wolf. I'm near the end, so I intend to finish that off, and then you know, we'll see what happens after that. But I actually considered putting the light novel down as one of the categories, but then I thought about it and I thought, well, it takes me on average about 6 hours to read a light novel from cover to cover, so might be a bit too much, you know, for 24 hours, you know. That's a quarter of the time in and of itself. Anyway, I know it's not quite a manga, but, you know, a lot of people just lump it in because of the fact that it's, you know, otaku based. So that's my plan. And beyond that, I have no idea what what to do. So, yeah, I'll see you in a little bit. So, I've just finished the second Spice Wolf novel, and it is about 7:15. About 20 hours since I began, and now I face a dilemma, and that is I have no idea what to read next. What I do know I'll do is close my eyes for a little bit, have some breakfast, and then I'll get back to reading something, but what exactly that is I have no idea. Maybe I can figure it out now. What to read? Nope, no idea. Okay, so I'll get something to finish off the marathon. So I just thought I'd tell you guys that. Well, this is embarrassing. I took that rest that I said I would do, and I fell asleep, and when I woke up I had that, you know, sleep paralysis thing or whatever. So by the time I had any energy to do anything, it was about a half hour ago, so it was 10:30, and by that point I decided rather than, you know, rushing through a manga just for the sake of, you know, rushing through a manga, that I would just end it here. So in about 4 minutes, it'll hit 24 hours since I started. So while that's all happening, I just want to say a couple of things. First is that this marathon can be seen as both a success and a failure. A success in that I did do all 6 categories, plus another title, but I didn't read for 24 hours, if you know what I mean. I fell asleep near the end. The other thing I'm going to recommend to people, don't, you know, sleep every so often during this marathon. If you're going to sleep, you know, a concentrated amount, because if you're just sleeping every so often, you're becoming steadily more tired, you're starting to feel horrible, your body's starting to feel sluggish. So if you want to do the whole thing straight, just stick it out. And you know, and if you want to, you know, take a rest, you know, really devote to it. That's what I'm gonna say about that. So I guess I'll run through the titles that I read. I'm fairly sure I did that at some point, but I can't remember. So my very first title was The 7 Deadly Sins, where a manga I had no interest in reading. Then after that it was a Josei manga with Insufficient Direction. Then it was a manga that was started before 1990, Drifting Classroom. Then it was a yaoi title, which was Crimson Spell. And after that it was a Shigeru Mizuki title with Onward Is it Towards a Noble Deaths? I think that's how it or is it Onwards Towards a Noble Deaths? I'm not sure. It's one of those. And then finally, it was the favorite category with Delight. And after that, I then chose to read a light novel. Now, how many of you will consider that? Like, it isn't manga. I'll just say it here and now. It isn't manga, but it is otaku related. So that's something. Now, if I had pulled out a DVD of anime and started watching that, that would certainly not count. So I don't know. The only thing that makes a manga and light novels related is that they're otaku based and they both involve reading. So, that's something. Yeah. So overall, I made some very good progress on in this marathon. I wanted to say this is hilarious. Now, one of the reasons that I'm like happy that I did this is because once you put the Drifting Classroom on my Shonen Sunday shelf, the final volume of Cross Game, like when it goes like slanted, it can't go full slanted. It can't lie down. It's always like leaning against a volume, so that actually makes me pretty happy. I know it's a weird thing to be happy about, but what can you do? And all I'm hoping is that you guys actually did enjoy this marathon, and if you did enjoy it, that you'll check out the original video that describes the rules, etc., etc., and consider participating. And even if you don't consider participating, then I'll be adding videos to the description of that video. So if you can head over to that video, just take a look in the description, and over the course of the next month there should be several videos being uploaded by some great people that you will take a look at. So it's just about to hit 24 hours. So let me just make sure you can get a good look at that. There we go. It's backwards on the lens for me, so I will tell once it hits. There we go. As you can see, it just reset to 0. So I'll end that off now. So it's been 24 hours since I started. Wow. And I guess I'll end it off here. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye bye.